John Chilcot there. Well, with me in the studio here is Lt Colonel Nick Henderson, commanding officer of the 1st Battalion Coldstream Guards between 2003 and 2006, and he was commanding troops in Basra in 2005. Thank you so much for coming in, Nick.
Pleasure.
When you saw the conclusions today, and as I say, the bulk of the report most people won't have got through, but when you saw the conclusions, what stood out for you? What was the main point that stood out?
As a soldier, we are prepared and paid, of course, to deploy on operations globally in support of government policy. So for me, if we are going to place our troops in a hostile arena for a cause that is so important that we are prepared to risk the lives of our soldiers to achieve success, then as an incumbent, and particularly as a commander on the ground, the decision to take that was done with the utmost integrity and the utmost legal process before that decision process is made, so that when we are on the ground and tragedy strikes, we know why we are doing it, and we are doing it in a worthwhile cause. And I would like to take this opportunity, if I may, just to remember the 4 soldiers who were killed under my command, because that's how it manifests itself. Anthony Wakefield, Donald Mead, Stephen Manning and Chris Hickey, whose families, of course, have to live with that decision all their lives. And for me, it's very much that decision-making process by the government at the time.
We're seeing some of the images of the men you've just named there, Nick. And I suppose on a day like today, when we've heard from the families, and we've heard the families expressing, yes, sorrow, but quite a bit of anger too when they found out that Sir John had concluded there were very serious shortcomings in the process that led to the invasion itself. For you on the ground, your experience in terms of, let's say, equipment, what was that? How did that work out?
I think mainly the main issues with equipment were earlier. I was there in 2005 and things had become a little bit more benign. However, notwithstanding that, there was a significant increase in the IED profile and the effectiveness that had been developed principally across the border in Iran, which we started suffering from, and our snatch vehicles are proving not really up to the task. However, whilst we were looking for extra protection, there comes a time as a commander on the ground when one has to balance the tools at your disposal. And whilst we asked for and eventually got some extra Warrior armoured vehicles, there are instances where you can't take those vehicles in the centre of a city. It's too narrow, there are overhead cables, there's far too much traffic, you're easily blocked in, and so on. So one always needs a balance of equipment. But there were instances, I mean, a small example, we were firing illuminating ammunition at night to deter attacks on ourselves and to assist our patrols at night with visibility in a city that the militia tended to use dark undercover to place IEDs. I was asked to reduce the amount of ammunition that I was using in support of training back in UK. Now, whilst that was somewhat absurd to have got as far as me, my issue at the time was that this had gone through various levels of chains of command without really any robust interrogation of that instruction.
That's the equipment question which you've shed some light on there. A bigger question, if I may, which is to do with purpose and people's sense of mission. We've heard some of the parents today who lost sons saying he died in vain in one case, just questioning the value of the invasion and questioning the value of the military operation. What were your men telling you on the ground? I mean, what was their sense of why they were there?
Well, they were there as a military force. Of course, we follow government policy. However, the decision-making that was clearly flawed on the intelligence that was produced was well known at the time. And in particular, when tragedy struck, it made people very sensitive about what we were doing, why we were doing it, were we being supported at home. And it made it very difficult to continue the process of increasing security and stability across the city. Now, British soldiers are very honourable people. They try extremely hard, and they worked very hard to improve the lot of the Iraqis under the instructions we were given. But that was extremely hampered early on by the lack of time for preparation and significantly planning. which was compounded by Paul Bremer removing the whole of the infrastructure of anyone who could do anything across the country. For me, I had to work with the various chiefs of police in the city, and there were 4 of them in my time, and one of them had been a butcher at the local abattoir. Commendable though he was in his efforts, he was very susceptible to pressure from the militia because he had no influence, let alone any idea how to manage a police force or administration.
Nick Henderson, good to talk to you, and thank you very much for coming in.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thanks very much. Lt Colonel Nick Henderson there, who served in Iraq back in 2005. Well,